Here's the beginning of the story, focusing on establishing the atmosphere, the characters' internal worlds, and the simmering tension that will explode later. The old stone walls of Castle Blackwood usually offered a cold, comforting silence after midnight. But tonight, Elara's breath plumed in the frigid air of the Alpha King's private wing, each exhale a fragile ghost against the oppressive quiet. Her hands, calloused despite their youth, moved with practiced grace over the polished mahogany of the ancient credenza, dusting away the day's invisible film. The only sound was the rhythmic whisper of her cloth and the distant howl of a lone wolf, a mournful echo from the shadowed forests beyond the castle's formidable defenses. Elara was a creature of the castle's hidden corners, a shadow among the grand halls. Her simple gray uniform, perpetually smelling faintly of lavender and beeswax, was a uniform of invisibility. She was 20, with eyes the color of a stormy sky and hair the shade of rich earth, usually braided tight to stay out of her way. Tonight, a few rebellious strands had escaped, softening the sharp angles of her tired face. She worked with an almost meditative focus, her mind replaying the day's endless chores, seeking the tiny pockets of beauty she could find, the way dust motes danced in the sliver of moonlight from a tall, arched window, or the intricate carving on a forgotten book spine. This wing, however, always brought a prickle of unease. It belonged to Alpha King Lyraeus, a man as legendary as the ancient stones of his castle. They said he was carved from obsidian and moonlight, fierce and unyielding. Elara had only ever seen him from a distance, a formidable presence at pack gatherings, his silver eyes like twin points of ice, his frame a living testament to raw, untamed power. His scent, a primal blend of pine, rain, and something uniquely feral, sometimes lingered, even in his absence, a potent reminder of who truly ruled these lands. Tonight, however, it was surprisingly strong, a subtle thrum against her senses. He was in the castle. She had heard the whispers among the guards earlier, the quickened pulses of the Omegas. Yet, she was alone in his chambers. She paused by the grand fireplace, its hearth cold and empty, yet emanating a residual heat from fires long past. A framed portrait above the mantel caught her eye, a stern-faced Lyraeus, younger, but with the same piercing gaze that seemed to follow her even in paint. It felt like an intrusion, this quiet intimacy with his possessions, knowing he could stride in at any moment. Her heart gave a sudden, hard thump against her ribs. She was just the maid, a ghost in his kingdom. She was nothing, and yet, the air felt charged, heavy, as if anticipating something. She shivered, not from cold, but from an unnamed premonition that settled deep in her bones. The scent was stronger now, distinct and undeniably him. It was the raw, untamed essence of the Alpha King, a scent that prickled Elara's skin and made the fine hairs on her arms stand on end. It wasn't just the lingering presence in his private rooms. It was fresh, vibrant, like a storm brewing just outside the window. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage. He was here. He was in the wing. She swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. Her hands, usually so steady, fumbled with a feather duster, sending a tiny cloud of invisible particles dancing in the moonlight. Her mind raced, cataloging her actions. Did I finish polishing the desk? Are the scrolls perfectly aligned? Is there a single speck out of place? A maid's existence was defined by her meticulousness, her ability to be flawlessly invisible. To be caught in the Alpha King's personal sanctuary after hours was not merely an infraction. It felt like an act of audacious rebellion. A low, guttural growl, barely audible, rumbled from the hallway just outside the chamber. It wasn't a growl of anger, not exactly, but something deeper, more primal. It vibrated through the ancient stones, through the very floorboards beneath Elara's worn boots, and resonated in her chest. It was the sound of a predator, awake and aware. She froze, every muscle in her body locked. Her gaze darted to the heavy oak door, wishing she could disappear into the shadows like the dust she swept away. Her breath hitched. She could almost feel his eyes on her, even before she saw him. The door creaked open slowly, a deep, resonant groan that echoed in the vast room. And there he was, Alpha King Lyraeus. He filled the doorway, a towering silhouette against the dim corridor light. His broad shoulders seemed to stretch the limits of his tunic, and his dark, tailored breeches emphasized the powerful sinews of his legs. His jet-black hair, usually meticulously styled, was slightly disheveled, hinting at a recent journey or a restless slumber. But it was his eyes that truly captured and held her. Silver. Molten silver, burning with an intensity that seemed to strip away her defenses, laying bare every fear and every hidden tremor. He didn't move, didn't speak. He simply stood, watching her, his presence a palpable force that sucked the air from the room. Elara felt a strange, confusing pull, a dizzying sensation of fear, and something else, something dangerous and exhilarating, like standing too close to a roaring fire. He was looking at her, the maid, the invisible girl, and in those piercing silver eyes, she saw not disdain, but something else entirely, something primal, something that felt like a challenge and a dark, undeniable curiosity. The raw, untamed scent of him filled her lungs, warm and overwhelming, telling her, in a language older than words, that he couldn't stay away. The air in the room grew thick, vibrating with the unspoken laws of the pack. Elara stood paralyzed, a small, gray figure caught in the storm of the king's attention. "You are late, little ghost." Lyraeus's voice was a low rasp, like velvet over gravel. It didn't carry the bite of an alpha's roar, but the sheer weight of it made Elara's knees tremble. She dropped into a deep, shaky curtsy, her eyes fixed firmly on his heavy leather boots. "My apologies, Your Majesty. The Great Hall, the celebrations ran late. I did not think you would return to your quarters so soon." "I find I have little patience for celebrations tonight," he said, stepping into the room. The door clicked shut behind him, the sound final and heavy. He moved with a predatory grace, circling her as she remained bowed. Each of his footfalls was silent, yet she could feel the heat radiating from his massive frame. "Stand," he commanded. Elara rose, her heart hammering so hard she feared he could hear it. He was close now, close enough that she could smell the cold mountain air clinging to his cloak and the deep, intoxicating musk of his skin. He reached out, his large, calloused hand hovering near her chin before he hooked a finger under it, forcing her to look up. "The chambers are spotless," he murmured, his silver eyes roaming her face with a terrifying intensity. "But you are trembling. Is it fear, Elara? Or is it the cold?" He knew her name. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The King of the North knew the name of a girl who scrubbed his floors. "It is a cold night, sire," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Then stay," he said, his thumb brushing against the sensitive skin of her jawline. "The fire needs tending, and I find I require something more than a clean room tonight. I require presence." It wasn't a request. It was a midnight command that blurred the lines between duty and something far more dangerous. For the next hour, Elara moved like a clockwork doll. She knelt by the hearth, stoking the embers until a roar of orange flame bathed the room in a flickering, amber glow. She felt his gaze on her back the entire time, a physical weight that made her skin prickle. Lyraeus didn't sit at his desk or go to his bed. He stood by the window, his silhouette dark against the frosted glass, watching her every move. When she finally stood to leave, she caught his reflection in a silver tray. He wasn't looking at the mountains. He was looking at her reflection, his expression unreadable, his eyes glowing with a faint, lupin gold in the firelight. "Do you know what they say about me, Elara?" he asked softly, turning around. "They say you are the shield of the pack, sire," she replied breathlessly. "They say I am a beast," he countered, stepping into the light. The firelight played across the scars on his forearms, marks of battles fought in shifted form. "They say I have no room for softness, that a king must only desire power." He took a step toward her, and for the first time, Elara didn't flinch. She saw the loneliness behind the power, a reflection of her own isolation. Her blue eyes, wide and honest, met his gold and silver gaze. In that moment, the hierarchy of the castle vanished. There was no king, no maid, only two souls recognizing a shared, silent hunger. The air between them hummed with a forbidden electricity, a spark that threatened to ignite the very air they breathed. Elara turned to gather her things, her movements hurried as she tried to reclaim her professional distance. As she reached for her basket of linens, Lyraeus moved to intercept her. It was a small movement, seemingly accidental, but as she stepped past him, his shoulder brushed hers. The contact was electric. A jolt of pure, white-hot energy shot through Elara's arm, centering in her chest. It wasn't just heat. It was a pull, a tether snapping into place that she hadn't known was missing. She gasped, dropping the cloth in her hand. Lyraeus froze, his breath hitching as he looked down at the point where they had touched. The veil, the invisible barrier that kept the classes apart, didn't just tear, it incinerated. He reached down, his hand closing over hers as they both reached for the fallen cloth. His skin was searingly hot. When his fingers interlaced with hers, a low, possessive rumble vibrated in his chest, a sound of a wolf finding something it had been hunting for a lifetime. "Elara," he whispered, his voice thick with a sudden, raw hunger. He pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her nape, his touch both gentle and demanding. The maid and the king were gone. In the flickering firelight, there was only the Alpha and the girl who had unexpectedly captured his soul. "Tell me to stop," he breathed, his face inches from hers. "Tell me to let you go, and I will. But if you stay, I will set this entire world on fire to keep you." Elara looked into his eyes and saw the beginning of a revolution. She didn't pull away. The air in the room didn't just feel heavy anymore. It felt pressurized, as if the oxygen had been replaced by the scent of him, crushed pine needles, and the metallic tang of an approaching storm. The transition from the bedroom to his private study was a blur of shadows and the frantic thudding of Elara's heart. Lyraeus didn't let go of her hand. He led her with a silent, bruising intensity. The study was a sanctuary of leather-bound secrets and candlelight, the door thudding shut with a weight that felt like a gavel. He didn't leave room for her to breathe. He pressed her back against the cool, dark wood of the door, his massive frame creating a wall of heat that boxed her in. His hands didn't touch her yet, but they braced against the door on either side of her head, his shadow swallowing her whole. "You think you are a ghost in my halls," he rasped, his voice dropping to a register so low it vibrated in her very bones. He leaned in, his lips hovering just an inch from the shell of her ear. The heat of his breath made her shiver violently. "But I have tracked your scent for months. I have listened for the rhythm of your heart through these stone walls." He leaned closer, his nose grazing the sensitive skin of her neck, inhaling sharply as if he were starving, and she was the only feast. "My forbidden desire isn't just to possess you, Elara," he whispered, the words a jagged confession. "It is to ruin myself for you, to tear down every law that says I cannot keep you. I don't want a queen for the pack. I want a mate for the beast." The word, mate, hung in the air like a lightning strike. It was a death sentence for his reputation and a rebirth for her soul. Elara's hands came up, instinctively pushing against his chest, but her fingers betrayed her, curling into the fine fabric of his tunic. "I am a servant, Lyraeus," she gasped, her voice breaking. "They will kill me for even looking at you this way." "Let them try," he growled, his hand finally moving. He didn't grab her. He cupped her face with a reverence that was more terrifying than his anger. His thumb traced her lower lip, pulling it down slightly. "Look at me, not as a king. Look at the male who is burning alive because you aren't in his arms." The Alpha's command wasn't a shout. It was the sheer gravity of his soul. Elara felt her resistance melting like wax. When he tilted his head, his silver eyes turning a molten, predatory amber, she saw the truth. He wasn't asking for her permission. He was claiming a destiny that had already been written in their blood. "Say it," he whispered against her lips. "Say you belong to the king." "I am yours," she breathed. The moment the words left her mouth, his restraint snapped. The kiss was an explosion of everything they had suppressed. It tasted of desperation and salt, of years of loneliness meeting a sudden, violent end. Lyraeus groaned into her mouth, a sound that was half man, half wolf, as he hoisted her up, her legs instinctively wrapping around his waist. He carried her to the large velvet chaise, never breaking the kiss. His hands were everywhere, mapping the curve of her waist, the line of her spine, marveling at the softness he had only ever dreamed of. But as his lips moved to the junction of her shoulder and neck, a new sensation took over. A dull, throbbing ache began to pulse in Elara's neck, the marking fever. It was the biological siren call of a true mate. Her skin felt too tight, her blood too hot. She arched her back, her head falling back as she bared her throat to him. "Please," she whimpered, not knowing what she was asking for. Lyraeus's canines lengthened, grazing her skin. He was trembling, his muscles locked in a battle against his own feral urge to mark her right then and there. "Not yet," he choked out, his eyes wild. "If I mark you now, the pack will smell it on you by dawn. I will not put a target on your back until I have a sword in my hand to protect it." He pulled away, though his eyes remained fixed on her like a predator guarding its prize. He walked to a heavy iron-bound chest in the corner of the study, the chest where the heirlooms of the Luna were kept. With a click, he opened it and pulled out a gown of midnight blue silk, embroidered with silver threads that mimicked the constellations. "Take off the gray," he commanded softly. Elara hesitated, looking at her tattered, maid's uniform. "Lyraeus, I can't. I will not have you in rags while you are under my roof," he said, his voice regaining its kingly authority, though his eyes were soft. He helped her, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he undid the simple buttons of her uniform. When the silk slid over her skin, it felt like a caress. He draped a heavy cloak of white fox fur over her shoulders, hiding the finery, but the weight of it felt like a crown. For a moment, she wasn't the girl who scrubbed the floors. She was the secret heart of the kingdom. The silence of the night was shattered by a heavy pounding on the study door. "Alpha," the voice of Beta Ulrich boomed from the hallway. "We've found a breach in the southern wall, and the Omegas are reporting ascent, an unauthorized presence in the royal wing." Elara's face went white. Discovery meant execution. Lyraeus's expression turned to stone. He pushed Elara into the shadows of the window alcove, drawing the heavy velvet curtains. He turned toward the door, his aura expanding until the room felt like it was vibrating with his power. He threw the door open before Ulrich could knock again. "You dare interrupt my rest for ascent?" Lyraeus's voice was a whip-crack of dominance. Ulrich recoiled, bowing his head. "Forgive me, Alpha. We feared an assassin. The scent is sweet. Unusual." "The scent is mine," Lyraeus lied, his voice cold and terrifying. "I am experimenting with oils from the southern trade. Unless you wish to discuss my personal hygiene at 3 in the morning, get out." It was a display of mercy that was actually a declaration of war. He was protecting her by deceiving his own high command. As the footsteps faded, Lyraeus turned back to the curtains. He knew the peace wouldn't last. The pack would sniff out the truth soon, and when they did, the flames would consume them both. The atmosphere shifts from the intimate heat of the study to the cold, biting winds of political treachery. The secret is no longer just a whisper. It is a fuse that has been lit. The heavy curtains of the alcove remained drawn, creating a sanctuary of silk and shadow. For a few hours, the world outside, the laws of the pack, the looming war, the social divide, ceased to exist. Lyraeus didn't return to his bed. He stayed on the chaise with Elara, her head resting on his massive chest. He didn't sleep. He watched her, his fingers tracing the delicate lines of her palms as if memorizing a map. "If we could run," he whispered into the dark, "I would take you to the high peaks where the snow never melts and the pack laws cannot reach us." Elara looked up at him, her heart aching. "But you are their king." "And you are my soul," he countered, his voice thick with a raw, agonizing honesty. They spent the night in a haze of soft touches and whispered promises, tempting fate with every second she remained in his arms. But as the first gray light of dawn touched the window, the reality of their crimes settled over them like a shroud. The bliss was over. The game had begun. Before Elara could slip back into her gray maid's rags, Lyraeus stopped her. He reached into his desk and pulled out a small, obsidian dagger, a ceremonial tool of the pack. "I cannot mark your neck yet," he said, his eyes burning with a dark intensity. "But I will not let you walk through this castle without my protection." He took her hand and, with the precision of a surgeon, made a tiny, microscopic nick on the inside of her wrist. He did the same to his own thumb, then pressed the two together. It was a blood bond, an ancient, deeper magic than a bite. It didn't leave a visible scar, but to any wolf who got close enough, Elara would now smell like the Alpha King's soul. "It is a hidden brand," he murmured, kissing the spot where their blood had mingled. "It will warn the predators that you are mine, but it will keep the secret from the council. For now." The morning air was shattered by the arrival of a gilded carriage. Lady Isabella, daughter of the Western Alpha and the woman the council had chosen to be Lyraeus's queen, had arrived 3 days early. Isabella was a wolf of pure pedigree, beautiful, cruel, and sharp-witted. She didn't need a mate bond to sense a shift in the castle's energy. As Elara scrubbed the floors of the grand staircase, Isabella stopped, her nose wrinkling in disgust. "You," Isabella hissed, pointing a gloved finger at Elara. "Why does a mere servant smell of mountain pine and royal incense?" Elara kept her head down, her heart thundering against her ribs. I was cleaning the king's study, my lady." Isabella leaned down, her eyes narrowing into slits. She didn't see a maid. She saw a threat. The king's scent doesn't cling to furniture that way. It clings to skin. With a sudden, violent movement, Isabella backhanded Elara, sending her sprawling across the stone floor. "Stay away from what is mine, or I will have your pelt for a rug." The secret didn't come out through a confession. It came out through an instinct. During the welcoming feast for Isabella, Lyraeus sat on his throne, his expression a mask of bored royalty. Elara was tasked with serving the wine. As she reached to fill Isabella's cup, the lady deliberately tripped her. The wine splashed across the floor, and Elara fell, her sleeve riding up to reveal the inside of her wrist. The scent of the blood bond, amplified by her fear, exploded in the room. The council members, all high-ranking wolves with keen senses, froze. The air became sucked out of the room. Beta Ulrich stood up, his eyes wide with horror. "The Alpha's blood," he whispered. "The king has bonded with a human servant." The hall erupted into a cacophony of snarls and outraged shouts. Isabella shrieked in fury, pointing at Elara. "Sacrilege. She has bewitched him." By midnight, Elara was no longer a maid. She was a prisoner. She stood in the center of the trial circle, surrounded by the 12 elders of the pack. They looked at her with eyes of cold judgment, seeing her as a parasite that had infected their king. Lyraeus stood at the edge of the circle, held back by his own guards. His eyes were no longer silver. They were a terrifying, glowing gold, his wolf pacing just beneath his skin, screaming for blood. "The law is clear," the High Elder proclaimed, his voice echoing in the hollow chamber. "A king who bonds with a lowborn without the council's blessing forfeits his mate. The girl must be exiled to the Shadow Woods, where no human survives the night. Touch her." Lyraeus's voice was a low, vibrating growl that shook the torches in their sockets. "And I will show you why they call me the King of Beasts. I didn't bond with her because she is a maid. I bonded with her because the moon chose her." He stepped into the circle, defying the elders, and pulled Elara behind him. The pack began to shift, the sound of cracking bones and tearing fabric filling the air. The internal war had begun. The atmosphere in the trial circle is no longer just tense, it is lethal. The air smells of ozone, wet fur, and the metallic tang of unsheathed steel. This is the moment the Alpha King trope transcends romance and becomes an epic of survival. The sound of 12 high-ranking wolves shifting at once was like the cracking of heavy timber in a storm. Bones snapped and reformed, muscles swelled, and snarls ripped through the vaulted ceiling. The elders were no longer men. They were towering monsters of gray and black fur, their eyes locked on the small, trembling girl behind the king. Lyraeus didn't shift. Not yet. To shift was to lose his humanity, and he wanted them to see the man who was choosing a maid over a crown. "Stand back, Elara," he commanded, his voice vibrating with a frequency that made the stone floor hum. He drew no sword. He didn't need one. He stepped forward, his aura expanding until it felt like a physical weight crushing the breath out of everyone in the room. This was the Alpha Command, the raw, psychic power that forced lesser wolves to their knees. One elder, a massive wolf with a scarred muzzle, lunged. Lyraeus moved with a speed that defied the human eye. He caught the wolf by the throat midair, his hands sinking into the thick fur. With a roar that shook the very foundations of Castle Blackwood, he slammed the beast into the stone pillar. "I am the law," Lyraeus bellowed, his eyes glowing like dying stars. "I am the blood and the bone of this pack. If you want her, you must walk through the fire of my soul to get to her." The trial turned into a frantic, blurred escape. Lyraeus grabbed Elara, sweeping her into his arms as the great hall dissolved into chaos. Loyalists to the king clashed with the council's guards. The pack ablaze wasn't a metaphor anymore. Torches were overturned, and tapestries caught fire, casting dancing, hellish shadows on the walls. They reached the North Tower, the wind howling through the battlements. "Why?" Elara cried, her voice lost in the gale. "Why destroy everything for me?" Lyraeus pressed his forehead against hers, his breath ragged. "Because a kingdom without you is just a cage, Elara. They think you are a weakness. They don't realize you are the only thing keeping the monster in me sane." Below them, the pack was divided. Families were turning on families, some moved by the king's devotion, others terrified of the curse of a human mate. The Lunar Code, the ancient laws of the werewolf race, was being torn to shreds by a single heartbeat. In the flickering light of the burning courtyard, the High Elder made his final move. He held aloft the crown of Fenris, a relic said to contain the power of the first Alpha. "Lyraeus," the Elder screamed, "renounce the girl, or we strip you of your lineage. You will be a rogue, a wolf without a pack, hunted by your own kind until the moon turns red." Elara looked at Lyraeus, seeing the weight of his ancestors on his shoulders. She tried to pull away, to give herself up to save him. "Let me go," she sobbed. "I'm just a maid. I'm nothing." Lyraeus looked at the crown, then back at the girl whose eyes held the only truth he had ever known. With a cold, mocking smile, he reached up and unbuckled his royal mantle, letting the heavy, fur-lined gold cape fall into the mud. "Keep your tin crown," he spat. "I have found my queen in the dirt, and I find her far more radiant than your gold." He turned his back on his throne, a king no longer, but something far more dangerous, a mate with nothing left to lose. They fled into the Shadow Woods, the forbidden forest, where the trees were said to drink blood. As the sun began to rise, the marking fever that had been simmering in Elara's blood finally reached its breaking point. But something was wrong. Usually, a human mating with a werewolf results in a slow, painful transition or death. But as Lyraeus watched in horror, Elara's skin didn't pale. It began to glow with a faint, iridescent silver light. The blood he had given her in the study, the blood bond, wasn't just sitting in her veins. It was reacting. It was calling to something dormant deep within her DNA. When Elara cried out, it wasn't a human scream. It was a melodic, haunting howl that echoed not from her throat, but from the forest itself. The trees bowed. The shadows retreated. "Lyraeus," she whispered, her eyes shifting from blue to a brilliant, piercing violet, the color of the lost star pack, the royal lineage thought to have been extinct for 1,000 years. She wasn't a maid. She was the last survivor of the First Blood, hidden in plain sight as a servant to stay safe from the very council that had murdered her family. The realization hit Lyraeus like a thunderbolt. He hadn't broken the law, he had fulfilled a prophecy. When the council's hunters finally caught up to them in the clearing, they didn't find a helpless maid and a rogue king. They found two gods of the forest. Elara stood tall, the silver glow from her skin forming a protective aura that scorched the grass beneath her feet. The hunters dropped their weapons, their wolves whimpering and tucking their tails. They recognized the violet gaze. They recognized the true queen. Lyraeus stepped to her side, his hand finding hers. The forbidden desire was no longer a secret whispered in the dark. It was a decree written in the stars. The maid is gone, Lyraeus announced to the kneeling army. Long live the Lunar Empress. As the sun fully rose, the pack wasn't just set ablaze. It was forged anew in the fire of a love that had rewritten history. The story has reached its epic conclusion. Would you like me to write an epilogue showing their reign a year later, or perhaps a bonus scene from Lyraeus' perspective when he first noticed her?